Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and as you can see, I have MMA legend John Fitch behind me. Fitch Smash, johnfitch.net is the website. You can go there right now and check out, I believe the links are to your Patreon and also to your
hmm
book. You can get to the Amazon site there.
Yep.
Failing Upwards, Death by Ego. That's just book one. You've got another one in the works. And John, I
One
am.
chapter in.
What's that?
One chapter in.
Hey, it's in the works, right? You got
It's
you
in the
got one
works.
down. That's more than some writers have in their career.
Yeah.
So you got a book and a chapter down. Very impressive stuff. So
Awesome.
I thought it would be fun to do a weekly broadcast where we talk about the week's fights, but we also talk about some of the week's issues. And the fights, I mean, actually, there were some surprises in these fights. I did not
Mm.
expect the
Yeah.
boxing match to be as good as it was. We'll get into that in a minute. But let's go Bellator first. No huge surprises in the way of victories, but what did you think the most exciting fight on that card was?
I thought the Larkin and Karkhinov whatever fight was extremely exciting. It was back and forth. I thought it was split. Could have gone either way, but it was a good fight. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, when I saw that fight, I probably had Koreshkov in the first round, and then I thought to myself, well, he did knock him down with that kick at the end, had that flurry. You could
hmm
argue that's a 10-8 round. And then I gave the next two to Larkin. He had more control. The second round was a little bit of back and forth. I thought he had the better shots. So I was pretty much I was expecting after I heard that went for the other. I thought, we might even have a majority draw or a draw. That wouldn't have been a majority draw, but a draw situation. I think Larkin was the winner. I thought at the end of the fight, even though Koreshkov was on top, he wasn't doing much, and he was on. Larkin was on top, in my opinion, more in that fight in the second and third rounds. He controlled a lot of those takedowns, and he got out of the ones that Koreshkov put him in a bad spot.
Yeah, I just Larkin just has that ability to step up and shine sometimes, and he definitely did. He definitely did on Friday.
Yeah, he
Sometimes he kind
absolutely
of,
did.
I don't know if he's got a mental issue with performance, performance anxiety or something like that. I don't know, but he's hit or miss sometimes.
Well, I was talking to you earlier because you do a live stream also. It's Shake Break now, but you might
Mm-hmm.
rebrand it. It's Monday through
I
Friday.
rebrand it, yeah.
And you were talking about that, and I said, he looked like a beast against Magny. Crazy leg kicks, and this is while Magny was still ranked, I think, top 15. I think he was 12 at the time, somewhere in there. They didn't put it on television. It was one of those early Fight Pass prelim feature bouts when they had a little bit more of a card when they gave you Fight Pass. We can get into the $60 paywall on this stuff in a second, especially for a card with the UFC. I think that had tops. I think 6 ranked fighters through the whole thing, maybe 6 ranked fighters on the whole card. And now that it's top 15, that's not saying much anyway. He looked amazing. Now he comes into Bellator. He doesn't look as great. He starts trading wins and losses. He was going to be an alternate in the 170 tournament, right? But didn't he lose that fight?
I think he did.
Yeah.
He lost to somebody. God, who else did he? He fought another guy who kind of falls into that journeyman role.
Well, I
No,
think Paul Daly was one of the guys that he fought and lost, didn't he? Was it Daly that he lost to when he came into Bellator? I could be wrong on that, but
I feel like he lost to, I don't know. There's a few guys I keep making mixed up. There's the one Russian fought. I don't know if he fought him or he fought the other guy I'm thinking of.
I mean, I think Larkin can be top. Like I said, I think 170 overall in MMA is probably the most exciting division. I don't think Woodley's done. I really like Covington. Obviously, Masvidal is getting some play. I've always liked Nate Diaz in that division. It's a big division. You, obviously, at 170.
I've always
Lima.
thought that, yeah, I've always thought that the welterweight weight class was one of the best to watch because guys are still fast and explosive like the lightweights, but they also have some KO power. So there's guys with big punches at that weight class also. So you get a nice mix of athleticism and skill and everything at that 170 weight class.
Absolutely, and we had that slick submission by who was it? Gotti Yamaguchi. Kind of got
Yeah.
caught, but wasn't rocked. Stayed in there, pulled guard, and then took his arm in slick fashion, probably in like 10, 15 seconds,
Hmm.
methodically, almost looked like a snake down there. I like him in Bellator. I think he's got potential.
I mean, he looked really good. Part of me was wondering how much a wad froze. I mean, is he a ground guy at all? Because there's some technical things about that fight that I don't think are good for MMA. I think for a if it was a no-gi grappling match, outstanding. Like shooting a low attack, mid to low attack, single leg on a guy open mat. I think that's a really bad idea to do in a MMA fight. But Yamaguchi was able to do it and transition it into, closing his guard and attacking that arm.
Well, he did it slickly, and I'd like to see him fight a ranked
Mhm.
opponent in Bellator. To kind of wrap up Bellator, let's talk about Joe Schilling and Tony Johnson. I think that
Mm.
but Joe Schilling came in there 4-5, and by the way, Flickoff, thank you for the good luck and the awesome super chat.
Mm.
They've been pushing him
Nice.
since the beginning. They know he's a knockout or be knocked out guy, and it was an exciting fight, but man, he's taken a lot of punishment in Bellator. Is it maybe time for him to go back to glory kickboxing? Does he have a future in MMA? I mean, Tony Johnson, I know he trains with you and he's a tough guy,
Mhm.
but in the first round, you could argue Schilling almost had him out of there. Almost, not quite. Couldn't stop him, and he rallied, ended up KOing Schilling in devastating fashion in that third
Yeah,
round.
Tony's got skills. He was the big knockout boxing champion
Mhm.
a while ago in boxing. So he's got good stand up. He's been boxing for a long time. He's been training with AKA for at least a decade. He sparred and trained with me a lot before the Rory fight because he's long, and his takedown defense has gotten a lot better because he's also training and sparring with Cormier.
Mhm.
So like he's getting a lot of work with top guys, and he's gotten a lot better at getting back up from bottom. Not even stopping takedowns, but getting back up. And then now Tony's at 185 rather than 205. So he's found a way to manage his weight and eat better and make that lower weight. But he hits freaking hard. Like he's a hard puncher, and now he's at 185 and he still hits just as hard. And you see that he's fading back, counter hook, landed right on the button, put Joe out bad.
Bad knockout. And you know what? Bellator likes to
Slinky
put
him.
those fights
Eh,
out there.
yeah, I think a lot of these kickboxers too, they come in and they think they're still fighting kickboxing, not understanding like that the change in glove size, it's completely different, man. Even if you watch those the caged Muay Thai that John Wayne Parr puts on,
Mhm.
like you'll see some guys who normally do pretty good in the Muay Thai, but it's the 4 ounce gloves changes things up.
4 ounce gloves, one mistake, and it's over. Before we shift to the UFC, I want to talk about the commentary for a little bit. John McCarthy, I remember, I actually, I think I watched some of the prelims on this too, but as soon as it got to the main card, now that I'm a DAZN subscriber, I had to do it for the Gegard fight, but I was really upset that they didn't have the Dublin fights on that. That's a separate gripe. Not having three of
Yeah,
your major fights on a paywall service and then not having them
that
air in the United
yeah,
States.
like what are you paying for?
And especially when one of those guys, MVP, fought a guy that had no business in the ring with him at 3-1. Period. In
Three
my
and one.
opinion. So
That's
yeah,
that was ridiculous. Unless that guy was some kind of world champion at some other similar sport, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, whatever. Like I don't see why that was
I feel like if you're
allowed.
fighting arguably the number one or number two guy in the division, you at the very least on your comeback fight, you fight a 10 to 15 guy, but more likely a 5 to 10 guy. Or what are you doing? You know what I mean? Especially if you want to call it a sport. You don't just give somebody a can and then let him call out Lima, who's been fighting legit guys the last 7 years of his career, really. I mean, since the incept, I mean, they've put him in with dogs and he keeps fighting. It's one thing you can say about Bellator. If you look at the Pitbull brothers, it's not like they've gotten any easy fights over the last 5 to 7 years either. When you're at the top, you end up
Mm.
fighting the top unless you're not a champion and you're not really going for it. And that's how I feel about MVP. Side note. McCarthy, he starts off totally lying about your fight with Rory McDonald, and they show the same clip where you get wobbled, but they don't show why you're wobbled, which was an incidental knee while he was trying to drag his feet away on one of your takedowns after you did take a shot, but you ate it. I mean, you ate it like a sandwich.
It was a glancing elbow that caught most of my shoulder. Glanced off, was nothing. I kept driving through on the takedown. So like there was no loss of mobility or consciousness or anything from the elbow. It was nothing. I could see stars. I could hear it. It went bop. And when that knee came by and hit me in the back of the head as he was kicking around, I was like, bing, and everything's just buzzing. And I tried to hide it, and I got up real slow. And you can see that he didn't know that he hurt me. He had no idea that he hurt me. I got up real slow, and I took one step back, and my leg was like, nope, fuck you. What? Uh-oh. So I had to get, on my horse and move my head, and he still couldn't finish. He still didn't land anything significant in that little exchange. So I don't know. I think it irritates me sometimes. Guys don't really look. They feel like they want to see something, so they just imagine that they saw it.
Well, I think there's also to push a narrative. They're bringing in the younger UFC guy. They want to keep pushing him. And he's in all the promos anyway.
Yeah.
They haven't cut as many video promos with John Fitch. They might have to pay you more money. But the thing that really irks me is when he's talking about it, he talks about how Rory hurt you again and again in that fight. Let's look at the facts of that fight. On all three judges' scorecard, you scored a 10-8 round where you dominated the third round. And you happen to be the only one with an actual winning scorecard. The other two fighters found it a draw. So when we call it majority draw, it's not a majority draw in the sense that anyone voted for Rory to win the fight. Yet somehow he spun it in the sense, and I've heard people say that Rory won that fight without even knowing the result in some of these podcasts.
They didn't see it. Like, the common thing also brought up is damage. People keep talking about damage. Oh, he did more damage. He did more damage. To my knowledge, damage has never been a scoring criteria for the judges. I've never seen that written anywhere. I've never had that written or told to me by a referee before the fights. The commission's never brought it up. I could be wrong. Maybe things have changed, but I always thought there were 4 scoring criteria, and that's it. And it's ring generalship, striking, grappling, and aggressiveness. That's it. Those are your 4. You base the fight on those 4. Like, so when somebody's talking about damage, like you're talking about, winning the popular vote in the presidential election.
Well,
that's
yeah,
not the,
I think
it's not the
really
game you're
interpreted.
playing. That's not the rules.
Man, it would be tough. For instance, I guess let's shift it to the UFC fight, right? Whitaker comes in after almost a year and a half, or I think maybe 19 months, maybe a little over a year and a half, hasn't fought. He's lunging at Adesanya. In my eyes, he wins the first 4 minutes and 55 seconds of that bout.
Yeah, and like he's controlling the ring more, and he was being more aggressive.
Absolutely. At the same time, he's lunging in. He's not really finding his distance. Adesanya's ducking punches, and at that point, 455.
He's finding his range.
Yeah, I've got a Whitaker round. However, Whitaker clocks him, puts him down. That's a 10-9 round Adesanya. I can't give it any other way. He had the most significant strike. I guess that's where you could argue.
He was literally saved by the bell. If he had a few more seconds, there would have been one more punch, and he wouldn't have woken up.
I agree. You saw him go over to his corner. He still didn't know what was going on. He came out
trying to play it off. He had that guilty look on his face. Like, you think anybody noticed that? You think anybody saw that? No. You're cool. You're cool, dude. Nobody noticed.
Adboxer 1 also mentioned that he saw a wobble in his leg. Now, I didn't see it in the first round. However, in the second round, that thigh, actually, me and my brother were talking about it maybe about 15 seconds before he took that big combo where it looked like he was favoring it and hopping up. I think that happened during the fight. It might even have been from him getting up, from that bell in that fashion, and maybe he twisted something. Because it wasn't
he fell the way he fell, maybe.
Exactly.
Mm.
I mean, he actually looked good with his leg kicks against Adesanya. It was he was jumping in, he was leg kicking, he was getting out, he was going for 1-2 big swings. I mean, swinging for the fences. I love Robert Whitaker. he would have been more advised, I think, to try to grind him, try to put him against the cage, wear him
It
down a
makes it,
little.
yeah, it makes it up a little bit. Where you got a big, long, athletic guy in front of you. You need to get him tired. You need to take away his athleticism. You're not going to take away his athleticism by running straight at him, or allowing him space to breathe. Like, you've got to smother that dude until he comes down a few levels on that athleticism chart, and then once he drops down from where Adesanya is from 10 to like 6, then now you've got a better chance of getting inside and landing big shots.
I agree, and I think that now they're looking. Obviously, they were trying to build a little heat with Paulo Costo in the audience. So I don't know if that fight happens next. A lot of people are trying to sell the Jones fight during that week. You know, Jones put out that tweet about how he would make him his little bitch or something like that. It's an interesting fight. I don't think Jones is at the top of his game right now. I don't know if they're trying to dole him off those picograms, but he hasn't looked great in his last 2 fights. You could argue that Thiago Santos won that last 5-rounder, that 5th round. Going in, I had it 2-2. Neither fighter looked great. They both looked really, really sloppy. And that was him with, what, a torn ACL, 3 rounds of the fight, 2.5 rounds of the fight. Thiago Santos. When's the last time Jones really looked that dominant? And, I mean, he looked pretty good against Gustafsson. I'll give him that. But Gustafsson was going in there injured. They changed the venue on him.
Yep.
And then on top of that, you look at Ovin Seprou, who actually had a very cool victory in the – was that in the prelims this week? Or was that last week?
I didn't see that prelims.
That could have been last week's fight. I remember he got another Von Flue choke. You know, Ovins looked pretty good against John Jones. Guys his size seem to fare well against him. And Adesanya, you know, he puts on 15 pounds. Maybe he does it.
Yeah, I think the big thing with Jones is he's turned into this. It's almost like point karate striking, right? He only wants to find that one. He wants to land the one push kick, the one kick, the one punch, or whatever. So I don't see him putting 3 or 4 or 5 together, like when he's clearly in a position where he's superior in these guys, and he could work those angles. He could do more with his striking than just coming straight at you, doing something flashy, and then a push kick or whatever. I think he's trying to one-shot everybody. He's looking for another highlight reel knockout. And if he just would overwhelm guys with the pressure and just put more on top of them, I think he would put a lot more guys out sooner.
Well, I remember back in the day when he was making that run. I mean, that Matt Hamill fight that he lost, you know, he was notorious. He'd get right all over you, put you in a crucifix, and just put you down with elbows quick. And I kind of miss that about Jones. You know, it's not as exciting to watch him, but he sells pay-per-views. I think they're protecting him to an extent. You know, obviously we're not going to have cross-league fights, but 2 of the most interesting fights I think that could possibly be out there would be a Bader-Jones fight or a Bader-Miocic fight. Ryan Bader looks awesome, both at 205 and, you know, when he's getting up to like 225, 230. We got a lighter heavyweight champion, and that kind of brings me to some more of the card. The heavyweight division, man. When we talk about the heavyweight division, they're fun to watch, right? And, you know, there's big surprises. They're trying to push that Javi Ayala guy. This other dude comes in 9-1, didn't look great in his last fight, but, dude, he's from Moreland, Eastern Europe, looks hungry, puts it on him, knocks him out. And then another guy comes in off the Contender Series, who was a 4-1 dog in that, knocks that guy out, and then knocks the other guy out, being, I think he was a 2-1 dog on that. So the heavyweight division, I want to see that Cormier rematch. I hope he goes out a champion, like he says. That's amazing. I think he deserves that. But outside of, you know, Cormier, Miocic, Dos Santos is old. You know, Czech Congo did not look good against Bader before that fight got called.
Yeah, he wasn't looking great.
Yeah, the old guard, there's not much left. Who do you see anybody in the heavyweight division that looks like, I mean, who else? Minikov in Bellator looked good, but Czech took it to him, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. I mean, the heavyweights are definitely fun to watch, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I think they're having a difficult time building stars everywhere, I think. You know, I think, and the reason for me personally, my opinion is that it's because, you know, there's no real merit system. It's basically pro wrestling. They're just matching up guys who move the needle. So it's not, you're not seeing this hierarchy play itself out where this guy deserves to be above this guy. And I think it's off-putting to people, and it's harder to build a star if you don't watch this guy earn his way up the ladder. I think that's one of the reasons why tournaments actually are successful, because you get to see the same guy climb a ladder towards the top. People identify with that.
Well, do you think then? I mean, when you look at and let's look at some of the pay here, right? And one more fight I want to talk about here is Brad Riddle versus Jamie Malarkey. It was on the prelims, but if you didn't catch it, it was a barn burner. I mean, it was probably one of the craziest fights I've seen this year. Back and forth, a lot of striking, even grinding on the ground. Really good, getting out of takedowns. They got fight of the night deservedly. But each one of those guys took a beating for 63,000 and 73,000 respectively.
Took years off their life, yeah, and that's before taxes and paying everybody out.
That's right. And before that, if you look at what they were actually going to get paid, had they not made that, it would have been $10,000 to show and $3,500, incentive pay. So let's look at that. Those guys have a barn burner of a fight, but let's say Iaquinta Hooker's just a little bit more dangerous. And by the way, I thought Hooker looked great. Iaquinta stayed in there the entire time.
He looked really good. Iaquinta looks a little stiff. He seems a little stiff.
I just don't think he could get the range on him. Every time he was getting in there, he was getting plugged. He had that cut over his eye. Every time he shot, Hooker was good to put him down. I think that Hooker just had really good range. He looks really good at that weight class, 155. He should have never been at 145 in the first place. Looks huge for 155, and it might be his time. I mean, Iaquinta, again, he's another guy fighting top 5 guys. He went, what was it, $80,000 to show, $80,000 to win, $10,000 incentive pay, or I'm sorry, $83,000 to show, and $10,000 incentive pay. That's what he got. So he didn't make much more than, those rookies. And like I said, the rookies, had they not done that, what are they really walking away with at that fight if another fight gets fight of the night? $6,000-$7,000? It's a tough sport, John. There's no doubt about it.
It's all by design. It's all by design. This is their projected their event revenues are at 20%. So the fighters make about 20% of event revenues. And it was projected to stay that way. It dropped from like 25 back in 2007, whatever. And it's consistently dropped all the way back, all down like 16 to 17. Now it's up around to 20. And they projected to keep it at 20 or just under 20 forever. So no matter how much money the UFC was ever going to make, they were never going to pay any of their athletes any more than 20% of the event revenues. We're not even talking about all the other stuff.
Yeah, and that's an event that supposedly had 57,000 seated. Let's say they gave away 10,000 tickets. Hey, maybe they did 10,000. Giving them out on the street, whatever. Yep. That's still 40,000+ people in that arena, and at $60 a clip in the United States, it's $40 in Europe. And I was lucky enough to VPN in at $18 in the Philippines to get the fights. But I'm already on a paywall, man. Let's talk about that. I already pay for UFC Fight Pass, which I was promised all these fights. Now they don't come until 3 months. Now I basically have all the under organizations that they're supporting and the Dana White Contender Series, which is also on ESPN+. The reason I actually love Fight Pass is I don't have to watch Cowboy eat food from a gas station, as if he does. I don't have to watch a car commercial or Hobbs and fucking Shaw, which I don't want to fucking see a million times over. Mm-hmm. And I've already paid you all this money. This is a pay-per-view. This is a pay service. This isn't cable. All right? Yep. I paid for this. And when I watch it on Fight Pass, I get that. I get to see Robert Whittaker's eyes rolled back in his head and what they're talking to him in the corner. That's what people are paying for, and yet you don't get that in the United States for people that aren't tech savvy. Instead, you have to still pay $60 an event, $5 a month for, 30 for 30 documentaries, I guess, because I couldn't give a rat's ass about anything else. How long is that deal? Is that a 5-year deal? Is that a 10-year deal? I mean, it's so clunky. And then on the other side, Bellator. You know, am I going to see it on Paramount? I paid for it on DAZN. I have to have
Yep.
British Channel 5 to see 3 of the fights. One of the guys you're promoting is the little McGregor. Hell, you had McNugget at the fucking show. So, I mean, I guess it's a good segue into boxing because they have almost the same model in boxing now. Tyson Fury's on ESPN Plus.
Yep.
Triple G, which had an incredible fight, which
Well,
we'll
this
get
is
into. You know, that's
we're,
DAZN, right?
we're living in the age of the battle for content, right? So all the platforms are at war trying to corner the stone and get all the content because the cable companies are falling apart. Pretty soon it's going to be, this is my prediction, like every type of show that you can watch will have its own app. You'll have its own app and you'll have to pay for that show through the app to watch it. Or you'll pay a subscription to a service that hosts a bunch of those apps.
You probably are right on that. I mean, that's essentially what you have anyway. Now that Disney is going to pull Marvel and Star Wars into their own network.
Cable will die completely. Yep. It'll just be internet service you pay for.
Well, I'll tell you what. One of the things that DAZN has over the other ones, in my opinion, is when I have to log into ESPN Plus and I log in late, they've already told me the winner. Like in the thumbnail, I see the winner of the fight, and I'm already pissed. At least they don't do that on DAZN.
You can start late and catch up, and
yeah, exactly. You can catch up. They don't have.
I got busy on Friday, and I ended up watching DAZN on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
For the fights,
which works for me, and that way I don't have to sit through any of the hype, blah blah blah. But again, with the pay services, DAZN is good. They don't give me a lot of hype. Fight Pass is good. They don't give me any hype. ESPN Plus, fuck, dude. They'll sell me every fucking thing. Tyson Fury, this, everything you can imagine. But the point is that now Tyson Fury, if Deontay Wilder beats Ortiz, and that first fight was a great fight. I don't know that he does beat Ortiz. Ortiz might have his number. Who knows? He knocked him down in that first fight. That was
we've seen a lot of upsets and things not go the way they were supposed to in boxing lately.
Yeah, no, Ruiz too. With I think Ruiz is going to run through Johnson in that secondary.
Where Derevyanchenko here.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Here's a guy who had
never heard of this guy. I was calling him Dirty D because I can't pronounce his last name.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. I think that DAZN would be smart to capitalize on this loss because if you look at the headline and you watch the fight, as good as it was, they wanted Derevyanchenko to win that fight. He looked the fresher, better fighter, probably in the last 2-3 rounds. But in those last 3 rounds, do I give him all 3? I don't know. Golovkin had some great counter shots. Yeah. Put him back. Probably not as busy. Golovkin knocks him down in the first. That's an automatic 10-8. That edges him out. There's a lot of close rounds in the middle where it's back and forth. I didn't hate those decisions. It's not like anybody had him up more than 2 rounds. How did you feel about that fight?
It was a really good fight. I want to go back and rewatch it again because I was splitting my phone screen and the other screen going back and forth watching fights. Because I wasn't really expecting that performance, I thought it'd be, something vanilla and Triple G get a knockout midway, something like that. I had no idea who this guy was. He was really good. He was crisp, clean, threw a lot of punches, a lot of volume, and he was turning angles on the guy a little bit like Lemachenko, but not on the same level. But he was throwing punches and doing a hard turn and getting the angle. And I was just, I'm just kind of blown away by, this guy I've never heard of. But I think that's one of the problems with boxing is like there's still all this money in it, but like unless you're a fan, you don't know. It's hard unless you're a diehard.
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of money for the top dogs, at least, right? There's a lot of money for the top dogs. There's mid-range money for the guys that fall off. I mean, the lower level fighters, I think they're in the same boat as MMA
economic.
Guys.
John Nash, MMA reporter, he's done a lot of economic stories on MMA and boxing, whatever. And boxing, the boxers make more money on every level than MMA fighters.
Really? Even on that lowest level?
On the lowest level. Because what happens is a promoter will find a young, hungry boxer, and he'll take him in, sign him, put him in an apartment, give him coaches, give him food, he'll live free training. And the promoter, it's a return on investment because that kid goes through the ranks, wins a title. Now he's making huge money. Guy gets his money back. A promoter can have a stable of guys like that. Not everybody's going to turn out, but you get 1 or 2 champs, you make the money. We don't have anything like that in MMA because on the lower levels, like it's lily pad jumping. You've got to build yourself up as much as you can in one promotion and then jump ship to another promotion. That creates an environment where it's just kind of like a system running through. The promoters just grind out the fighters as fast as they can. They don't care about building them. That's why you'll see guys who you're like, oh man, why did they throw him in that fight so soon? It's because they're trying to cash in on him right now. They don't care about him 5 years from now. That's a different model than what boxing is. Like we also don't have like a really developed amateur system for where the promoters can view and watch these guys come up through the amateur system and then sign them as they turn pro.
Yeah, I mean, you basically got to go to the regional scenes like Reality Fighting or King of the Cage, and you'll see about half of the fights will be amateurs, and then guys in the very beginnings of their professional career. Most of the time, that's what those organizations have turned to. I go to those shows. They're fun shows to go to.
Yeah, and then the UFC has strengthened its monopoly in that sense because they have deals with some of these smaller shows. So like the fighters need to go to those shows in order to get seen to get into the UFC. So it cuts out the market from a lot of other small promotions who aren't tied with the UFC and aren't getting money from them and aren't getting on Fight Pass.
No, you're absolutely right. They bought up a ton of them. Cage Warriors would be one of them. I saw that after Fox lost their rights to the UFC.
Another way to control talent.
Yeah, well, they've started. I forget what it is, but it starts with a T. But basically, Fox has one right now, but it's only one. It's not huge. And I would say the same with ESPN Plus, right? There's PFL, which I think a lot of fighters will jump to if they can keep their money promotion because you're guaranteed so many fights. And if you can string 5 or 6 wins together in your division, it's $1 million check if they're making those payouts.
I've still not seen the PF. When I see a signed check for $1 million, yeah, okay.
That's when you're coming in. That's when you're coming in. That's when you're breaking the Bellator contract, John.
No. That's when I'll believe it because like there's people who did. There was like 2 people that said, "Oh yeah, we got paid in full." Like, what'd you buy? Like, what are you doing with your money? Like, where's the check? Really? Like, where's your new car? Did you get a new house? Like, I haven't seen anybody do anything life-changing.
It's a good question.
I just have my suspicions. That's all.
No, I hear you. And
I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just being a dick. Sour grapes, whatever you want to say.
I mean, I just feel like if you have an opportunity as a fighter, if you have if you're a ranked fighter, right? You're a ranked fighter.
I will say 100% that PFL for an up-and-comer who no one knows, it's great. It's great. Even if the money thing is there, because like I said before, the tournament aspect will build you. If no one knows who the hell you are, it's a really good way to go.
Yeah. And you got guys like Lance Palmer that supposedly capitalized on it. You know, he's one of the $1 million winners. I was down in MSG for that. And then you have veterans that are in there that haven't been able to turn it around, like Magalhaes. He can't seem to, I don't know, his cardio's not there.
It's not a good place for veterans because you've got a lot of young killers with no name.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. I mean, even your fight against Brian Forrester, Forrester was hungry. You ended up on the winning end.
Yeah, he's a hungry guy, he's a tough guy. And then, I'll tell you what, it's easier to finish guys when they're coming at you. But but like, you don't get credit for beating a guy like that. Like, he's tough as hell. He came ready to go. He had nothing to lose. But like, I mean, I guess I did finish him, so like I got a little bit of credit. But still, like, if I wouldn't have finished him. Yeah,
and
it's
that's
like there's
pre-PFL. That's World Series of Fighting, where the tournament system there, but the big payout isn't. And ESPN owning that, is that a conflict with the UFC? They're in business together. Again, that's Disney owning everything. And they have
there's weird money stuff going in between PFL
and now they have what's the EFC, which is the South African League, where you got guys again probably under 10 fights in most cases, juiced out of their minds. It's interesting. Let's shift gears. We've done half the show on MMA. Let's talk a little bit about the world around us. I know I put Epstein. Did I put Epstein in the title? I put Epstein in the title just because we haven't talked about this yet, but I want to get your take on what the media's kind of done with Epstein after this.
Just disappeared. Like, what happened? Somebody died? Where?
I've seen obviously
Epstein, what?
the Daily Beast is doing some stuff, still the Miami Herald, but for the most part, like you just said, this thing has died and nobody around the guy has been arrested, including some of the model agents like Jean-Luc Brunel that are supposedly being investigated now. And I did a video last week where I showed a 60 Minutes piece from 1988 where multiple women accused him of drugging and raping them. And this is when they were using the Ford modeling agency to get 14, 15, 16-year-old girls to be shipped in from the United States over to Paris to live in these apartments that they would rent out for them. And, you can imagine where it goes from there. Do you, John Fitch, think any of these people will see justice?
No, I don't think anything's going to be done. I think it's going to get swept under the rug. It'll disappear. People just don't want to believe that type of evil is real, and they just ignore it. And your average person isn't going to listen to it, and the media doesn't want to touch it because the people in power that pay them are going to get in trouble. So it's gross, but that's just where we're at. That's just where we live right now.
And where we live, you're always talking about toxic masculinity, biology on your show.
Yep.
Yesterday, when we were kind of prepping for the show, I mentioned a couple stories to you. And one of the things is that, they've been promoting, especially with the Joker. I'm hopefully going to go see it tomorrow over on $5 Movie Day here in Oneonta.
I saw it yesterday.
Did you see it yesterday?
Excellent.
Oh, man, I wish I'd seen it just so we could talk about it and not ruin it. But there's a lot of hype around incels and shooting up movie theaters again because we've had the mass shooting at Walmart where somebody dressed like the Joker. People have idolized it, but they never bring it up when a woman brings a gun somewhere. Or like we were talking about yesterday, we had this one woman on Easter charge a church with a gun and a baby. Luckily, the gun was not loaded, but threatening to kill them, probably all met it up. And then this other woman who was caught with 24 plus pipe bombs.
24 pipe. Unbelievable. That would be, it was a white lady too, white chick.
Yeah.
Right. If that was a same age white dude, that would be number one thing in the headlines.
Well, if he was a Trump supporter,
if he was anywhere right wing or.
And that's not, saying I'm supporting Trump, but can you imagine if they could go with the narrative that all you'd be hearing them on the news is, do you know how many lives they saved? Experts say those 25 pipe bombs could have killed 2,000 people and mangled 5, you know what I mean? So that would have been huge, and it shows you how that gets covered up. In one case, I believe, other than the meds, I guarantee they were both medded up, right? The second one was supposedly 100%. On the spectrum, autistic. I guarantee this woman who was a military veteran, a Navy veteran, and somebody who had interned for NBC News, the local station there, Those aren't good looks. They don't fit the narrative. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
A single mom had a gun, but it wasn't loaded. And then the other aspect of this is the woman with the bombs, there's no way to take away your guns because all she had was BB guns. Maybe they would have been able to slide something in if she had an AR-15 or something like that. But my question is,
they don't want people to know how easy it is to make bombs. It's like, it's way easier to make a pipe bomb than it is to buy an AR-15. Do you know that, people? Do you know that? Now you do. It's way easier.
Look, man, you're never going to stop crazy. It's just never going to happen.
No.
And this narrative that somehow we're going to be safer if we ban guns is just. I'm not even a gun guy. It's not like I can't wait to get to the range or blah, blah, blah. I think I should be able to defend myself. I don't like the fact that every time guns are taken away from citizens, tyrannical governments seem to install themselves and take more and more power. I don't know what people are thinking. First, they want your guns. Then they fully take your speech. All right. And that kind of gets into the next subject here. I know you haven't seen it yet. But it took South Park all of 22 glorious minutes to be not banned from China, but entirely scrubbed from the internet of 1+ billion people.
Nothing's been scrubbed from China like this since Tiananmen Square.
That's like the greatest. Well, that's
Boom,
not
boom.
true. See, I think there's actually something that has been scrubbed, John, and I didn't know about it till I watched this. So one of the things that they make fun of in this is the fact that in 2013, and I had to look it up to see whether it was actually true or not, but in 2013, Winnie the Pooh got in there as someone who looked like Xi Xiaoping. So yes, so
I remember that.
yeah, okay.
I do remember that.
So that happens, and then all of a sudden, like Pepe or whatever, it becomes a symbol for people to resist. So by 2015, they have to scrub Winnie the Pooh from their country and get rid of Winnie the Pooh altogether. If
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's hilarious, right?
They
So the,
banned
the
Winnie the
gist of this
Pooh.
story is that Randy wants to make more money with his Tegrity weed farm, and he thinks expanding to China is the way to go. But when he gets there, he's got all this weed. He ends up in a Chinese prison. He sees the most horrible things, but that's where he meets up with Winnie the Pooh. Exactly.
Oh
So he
man.
meets up. They have this story. Chaos ensues. I don't want to give away too much of it, but you need to see it. It's pretty alarming. I mean, they show. Listen, we now have big Hollywood corporations. I mean, just Disney itself has Disney Shanghai. They have Disney in
Yeah.
China. They're catering to this
Run
audience,
them, run them. Yeah.
and it
It's
should
crazy.
alarm people that.
Just the news covering Hong Kong, like it's super obvious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's
And that's a tough one because it's
gross.
like, what do we do here? We've now integrated ourselves with an authoritarian regime over the last 30 plus years, really before
Mm-hmm.
that. If you've seen my film Invisible Empire, I talk about a lot how Kissinger, Nixon, they were kind of the forefathers under this Rockefeller doctrine to bring China into the mix. I know on the television they're showing you Richard Nixon and ping pong in China, and that was the diplomacy, but it was more like, hey, Mao, look, you just keep killing whoever the fuck you want. And we're going to roll out the genes, and you just keep authoritarian. We're going to start getting some commerce in here. That's how we're going to do this. And then we start adopting a little bit more of their authoritarianism. And somewhere in the middle, I fear we're going to meet. You know what I mean? You look at their social credit score, John, and you look how Apple has a social credit score for you. And you look for this push, and you wonder, do you think it will ever get to the point where a show is offensive and it just gets scrubbed completely from the United States internet?
Man, I think I hope not, dude. That's a sad day. If that's a trigger point for a lot of people. If that happens, if they erase a show entirely, if they erase a book entirely, something bad's coming. Something bad is coming. Like that's not okay. Really, people. Like that's a red alarm. Like get your guns, get shit ready. Shit's going down. When they ban a show outright like China,
Well, you
it's
could
trouble.
argue. I mean, look, I often criticize Alex Jones when I don't agree, and people give me flack for that. But he's not allowed on this. Look, we have shows on television, right? I guess he's not outright banned from the internet, and I suppose he could be still on television without his shows. I don't know that his networks broadcast anywhere, but say the second largest platform in the world other than television is YouTube,
Hmm.
and he is
Yeah,
banned. And they
yeah.
scrubbed 10 years of videos, and those included videos where I did interviews with people like Bill Burr and Tommy
Mm.
Chong and Aaron Russo, and I go on and on and on. And I just never think that scrubbing history, if it's so bad and
Ever
it
a
needs
good
to be
idea?
put
No,
on
it's
notice,
not.
let people know. Let them.
Silence is the enemy. Silence is the enemy. Talk about everything. Talk about everything. Look at everything. Read everything. You know, even the bad shit. You got to be able to form an opinion. Be like, oh, well, that's what the bad shit is and what it looks like, and this is why it's bad. Like, you got to have it.
100%, 100%. And to me, I just hope, I don't know, I hope people take this seriously because, again, if first of all, can you imagine the lengths they have to go to completely scrub South Park from their internet? I mean, it had to be taken off all their video services, which I don't know if you know what Alibaba is,
Yeah.
but basically the guy that owned Alibaba had the service that streamed all of South Park. This must have been in the work for the last few days because it just went offline today. But to be able to get every episode, every message board, every image they could possibly get. So you only have a speck of an
Out of a
indent
billion
what
people.
yeah, for a
Out
billion
of a
people.
billion people sharing information.
Yeah.
They scrubbed everything.
They
South
scrub
Park, Winnie the Pooh, and Tiananmen Square no longer exists in China.
and I mean, I don't have the answers to that one. I always say, look, I don't have the answers to that one, but it is alarming, and I just see our society leaning towards that a little bit more. We've been on the air a whopping 45 minutes, Mr. Fitch. Do you have anything you'd like to talk about? What's going on in your day?
Not a ton. I just
No?
had my parents in town last week, so I had a staycation, kind of at home with them, taking care of them, showing them around
And you had the kids
California a
there
little
too,
bit.
right?
I had the kids. Yeah. So, that was a lot of fun. But yeah, getting back to work now. I got a new video I got to put up later on Patreon. I'll finish putting that up when the kids are at jujitsu here next hour. Yeah, but that's about it. I'm working on my website has been redone, thejohnfitch.net. I'm going to do some more changes to it too. I think move some things around.
I think it looks awesome,
But
man.
yeah.
I think it looks
Yeah,
actually
she just
really, really
I
good.
just I've got somebody to redo it, and this is just live. It's been live for a few days. So I'm going to change a few things around. I think I'm going to change the landing screen because if you're already going to johnfitch.net, you know who I am.
Hmm.
Right. So I should probably go to maybe the podcast that I'm doing and stuff on the first landing page. Just change that up, but that'll come.
I think it looks great. And then why don't you tell people about the book? I know you've only done one chapter on the follow up, but why don't you tell people
Yeah.
why they should now order Failing Upwards Death by Ego?
Yeah. So this is a look at the beginnings of mixed martial arts from the fighter standpoint. I've been keeping a journal since 2000. Wrestling coach gave it to me after I had a bad wrestling season, and I used it over a summer to get ready for the next season. I had a lot of success with it. I stopped using it, but then I started using it again when I started fighting, right before I moved to California and started training AKA. So it's got my journal entries from the very beginning, where it's kind of just started off as a workout journal to me broadening it and then talking about a lot more stuff as I went along. And the book covers, a season or a summer training, getting ready for a season at Purdue University. And then there's a 2-year break. And then I start my fighting where I'm getting ready to move to California. And it takes me all the way through the tryouts for the Ultimate Fighter. And that's where the beginning that's where the end of the first book in the series is going to be. But I've got stacks of journals that I'm going to go through and share with everybody.
So I also got to ask you, next weekend is the first triple card I've ever seen from Bellator promoted. I don't know if you've seen this yet,
I
but
haven't.
just like they kind of promoted, I guess, what was it, 227, the Benson Henderson one as UFC Ireland, and the other one was UFC Dublin, and you didn't see those other 3 fights, right? They had totally different prelims. They're doing, it looks like fights from, geez, is it 11 a.m. on? I mean, it looks like Varga versus Faustino. Let's bring these over here. But it looks like a ton. How do you feel about those double day cards with them? Because they do that kind of a lot. I like the back-to-back ones over at like the Mohegan Sun, obviously, because that's close to me. I get to go, and it's relatively cheap to go see a Bellator card. But 3 in one day, am I going to even be able to do this?
Yeah, that's a long day. That's this weekend.
I mean, there you go. You got Varga versus Faustino, right? It's all in Milan, Italy. I know it's a European card. Then they're pumping the Manahoff versus Body, and then they got Cavello versus Nemkov also at 9 p.m. I mean, I would assume that's got to be close to 18 fights. I've been to Bellators where it is upwards of almost 20 fights for sure.
They've got lots of fights. I mean, because they do the post limbs too, a lot of times.
Well, I would assume that would be what they're trying to do. I would also guess that all these are on DAZN because I'm not seeing the Paramount logo on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I like their expansion into Europe. I hope that I'm going to be able to see this. I hope it's not just on television. Scott Coker, man. Come on, dude. I love you. Like, let's go.
Hopefully they should probably have the listed on the DAZN app if it is available.
Yeah, you would. I
'Cause
mean, you would think
you
that,
can set
right?
reminders a lot of times.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, so I guess I'm going to look after the
Mm.
show. How do you feel about the business
Is
model
it
of Bellator?
is it this week?
Yeah, this is
This
12th.
weekend?
It'll be
Oh,
this
wow.
weekend.
That's
Yeah.
all. Huh. No, I think Scott Coker's doing a good job. He's focusing on doing shows in local markets with local fighters. It's a strategy he's used for a long time. It works. He brings in a lot of money by putting butts in the seat, by putting local guys in there, and people are there to see their local guy. That's one of the reasons why he does the post limbs, because he can put the local guys after the main event, and the people will stay in the seats, to watch the fight, to stay there and watch their guy fight. Whereas if he's afraid if he puts all the local guys on the prelims and they fight and they're done, like people might not stay in the stadium to watch the main event guys because they're not the local guys. So he's smart in doing that. He keeps the stadium full. He probably makes a ton of money on the concessions because the fights seem to stretch out for a long period of time, and there's plenty of time to get beers and eat food. So I think he's probably making money a little bit different ways than the UFC is, but it seems like he's being successful. And you know what? They're paying out. I think it was somewhere between 40 and 60% of their revenues to the fighters, and that's the majority of their money too. Even if it's event revenue, their event revenues are pretty much the majority of what they make.
So then, what did you think about? Did you watch where they had that show? Right, what was it? The in between show where they did like I would have watched that show where they set up Patricky Pitbull and everybody, and who was the other one there? McKee in that tournament for the next tournament coming. But why did I have to wait 50 minutes to watch Machida versus Gegard Mousasi? That pissed me off too. Again on a paywall. Like, come on, man. I get it, Coker. You knew that everybody was going to watch it. It was kind of the second main event. All the real fight fans also wanted to see Pitbull versus Archuleta, right? And that being a qualifier fight is amazing for the title. That was brilliant. Archuleta, I know he fought on the Guardian card. Thank you for those tickets, by the way. Archuleta looked amazing there. He's looked amazing in his Bellator career.
Yep.
Felt like he just couldn't find the range on Pitbull, man. I mean,
Yeah.
Pitbull's great at getting out of that range.
Needs a little more time to develop, I think, maybe.
Did you watch that fight, or did you catch that one?
I did watch the fight. He looked good, but yeah, he just was, Pitbull was level 10 and he was level 9.
Pitbull's often level 10.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Archuleta looked huge against him. Everything. There's
room for him to improve. I think he's got some things he can tune up and then come back, and he may give him a better run, or beat some other guys up.
And again, I like
he's an ex Boilermaker too. So.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. Mo. That's right. We talked to. I know your coach Mo was telling us, and he actually came over and said hi to Mo after he won that fight out in the Garden that he coached him for a while. I mean, I think Archuleta, again, he's probably a top 10 guy in the world. I just think that Pitbull's probably a top 3 guy in the world, and maybe top 5 in those 2 different weight divisions. I mean, what's he hold it at right now? 145 and 155 there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 155, I obviously think Khabib runs through him, but Khabib runs through everybody. So
everybody, yeah.
Yeah, and Ferguson's tough. Guys, I think we're about to wrap it up. I've got another super chat by Flickoff I'm going to read because we love the super chats, John. The 2-part episode in season 13 about trying to turn Muhammad into goo and use for his ability to not be ridiculed was scrubbed years ago. Well, here in New Zealand, anyways. That's right. Do you remember that one? So remember the episode where they make fun of the Justice League? And they actually tried to scrub that from the United States too, but it started being replayed on local TV networks that had the rights. So they did this episode long before it was pre 9/11. So pre 9/11, they do a Super Friends episode where the Super Friends include like all these religious figures, including Muhammad. So they actually have not a picture of Muhammad, but a cartoon of Muhammad through the whole thing. But nobody made a big deal of it because towers weren't in the ground and we weren't at war. And I think it's the same episode as where Christopher Reeves is sucking the fetuses for.
I remember. Okay, I totally remember that.
Yes. So they did ban that in many countries. It's actually kind of supposed to be banned in the United States because of religious sensitivity. But every once in a
Yeah.
while, 3 a.m. on a local channel, you will catch it. Guys, make sure to go check out John Fitch's website. You can support him on Patreon. You're doing the Shake Break tomorrow, right?
Yep.
And
Be
that
there
is
at
at-
9:30 left coast. I'll be there. Official John Fitch is my YouTube, and you can stop in, ask some questions, see what's going on.
All right, and guys, you know how to support me. You can subscribe to this channel, thumbs this video up, share it. I'm going to try to get this into audio form too so we can make it into a podcast. And look for it next week, Mixed Martial Mindset. I had a great time. I hope you did, Fitch.
Yep, this is good, man.
All right, brother. We will see you all on the flip side.
All right, laters.